Amy and Damian have an emotional breakthrough, and Claire gets an eyeful of Summer in Kyle's arms. Today on The Young and the Restless, Summer reveals her mother is missing. Victor gives Lily inside information, and Lily agrees to dinner with Damian. Claire arrives at Crimson Lights and joins Kyle. She hands him a gift to apologize for the way her grandfather treated him last night. Kyle opens the box. It's earbuds. She tells him Victor's criticisms aren't warranted. He loves them and kisses her. Claire feels bad about talking him into dinner given it's obvious now that Victor won't give them a chance. Kyle didn't expect it. The charade was for her benefit last night. Claire says it didn't work. She complains that even Nikki couldn't persuade him. Kyle expected it. He warned her that he hates his father and the Abbott family. It's trickled down to him. Kyle vows he won't scare him off, but Victor is relentless. He'll turn on the pressure until she finally throws up her hands and gives in. Victor welcomes Lily into the ranch, and she muses, "So, you said you had information about Damian Kane." Victor tells her he had a meteoric rise in the business world. One might call it an overnight success. He's an interesting fellow, but a serious chap. He hopes the information he gives her will ease the tension between them. Lily wants to hear the info first. Victor tells her about the 2 companies he owns. He came to Los Angeles years ago without means. Lily asks how he built the companies. Victor says he didn't build them, he took them over. She asks, with what means? Victor replies, that's the mystery. Lily frowns, so Damian Kane took over 2 successful companies with no money. Victor says he was granted ownership on paper. The real owner is Aristotle Dumas. Lily recalls that the author of The Count of Monte Cristo was Alexander Dumas. Victor says Damian runs the companies through a corporation called Arabesque. Victor explains that this Dumas is always ahead of the fluctuations in the market. Either he's a brilliant businessman or he's up to some suspicious activities. Lily thanks Victor for answering her questions, although she feels like she knows less about Damian now. Victor asks about her interest in the man. What are you getting yourself into? At Nate's place, he hopes Damian's arrival means he's reconsidered his position on his mother, and on him too. Damian isn't sure about all that, but he's been thinking about it. He'd like to talk to his mother alone. Nate has a meeting to get to, and tells them to take all the time they need. Amy assures him she'll be fine. Nate tells Damian he'd like to have a conversation too before he leaves. Damian nods, "You're next on my list." Nate exits and Damian asks Amy what she expects. What does she want from him? Amy doesn't know what she'd have done with Nate and Audra. Damian tells her that her answer to his question could decide everything going forward. All she wants is what she already asked for, your forgiveness. She wants to know that when she says goodbye to her son, they're okay again. She'd like him and Nate to get to know each other and maybe care for each other. Damian warns that would take more than a couple of days, if it even happens right now. Let's just focus on you and me right now. And he nods. Damian could tell her right now that he forgives her and that he's sorry he left her. Then what? She dies there or in Chicago without him. Him saying he forgives her is cheap. He thinks what she really wants is for him to stay with her until the end and comfort her until she passes. At least be honest with me, Mom. At least give me the truth. Annie would never ask him to upend his life for her. It would give her comfort for him to be with her at the end, but she wouldn't expect it from him. Damian asks how she'd know he was being sincere if he said he forgave her. Annie knows him. Damian says, "You knew me, not so much anymore." Annie tells him that when he has children, he'll understand. All she has to do is look in his eyes and she'll see the truth. You can't break that bond. Tearing up, Damian says that's probably true. Amy asks if he can find it in his heart to forgive her. She can't understand how they ended up so far apart. What did she do that was so wrong? Damian hollers, "You let my father die." Now it feels like she's taken him away all over again. That's why. Annie always suspected her son blamed her for Jackson dying. Damian's not blaming her for the disease, but for being so cold and detached at the end. Annie argues, "That's not what I was doing," but he argues that's what it. You just went on about your life, going on with your life like it was business as usual. Annie can't believe she is hearing this. Damian reveals that he used to skip school to stay home with his dad so he wasn't alone. If he felt her absence, Jackson must have to. That's my reason. I was just a kid, Mom. And you left me alone to watch my father die. Amy sighs. Does he want to know why she was pulling herself away every day? Damian nods, yes. Amy tells him, Damian, we didn't have insurance. And that was on your father. He let the policy lapse. So I had to get a second job to pay the bills. Even that wasn't enough. She cries that she wasn't shut off or detached. She did everything she had to do to keep him alive as long as possible. Damian didn't know money was so tight. Amy says a parent doesn't share that with a child. She had to be strong for both of them. All Damian wanted was her to be there to hug him, to hug them both. And he cries, I would have fallen apart. I just couldn't. She tells him his father knew the end was coming, like she does now. He needed to know she could keep the family going. Knowing she hurt him because of that decision, and that he hates her for it, it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart. Damian just remembers her being gone. But he guesses he was so focused on his dad, he didn't pay attention to what she was going through. He's sorry. Amy's sorry for not being there. Damian can't end years of resentment in one conversation, especially with the revelation that Jackson wasn't his father and some stranger named Nathan Hastings was. She didn't need to tell him. Amy couldn't go on with him hating her and thinking she didn't care for Jackson, the man she loved and adored. Damian says, and lied to. Amy asks Damian to try and understand. Damian is trying, but it will take some time. And he cries. I don't have much time left, honey. Damian is sorry, but that's how it has to be right now. Amy asks him to promise one thing. If he can't take these last steps with her, will he tell her in person? Damian nods, yeah. I'll do that. Amy asks if she can hug him, the one that you wanted so long ago. Damian reluctantly accepts it. At Crimson Lights, Claire is surprised Kyle would even suggest she give up on them. Kyle says Victor will hammer away until she can't take it anymore. Claire insists that won't happen. She reminds him she grew up with someone who controlled her. She didn't escape that prison to jump into another one with her grandfather. If he can't embrace this, that's his problem. I'm not going anywhere. Kyle smiles. Victor can only break them up if they allow him to. Neither will give him the satisfaction. They kiss. Summer enters the coffee house, texting her mom again. Kyle at the counter asks if everything is okay. Summer says her mother is missing. She and Daniel haven't heard from her in over 24 hours. It's not like her. I'm really scared. Summer goes into Kyle's arms for a hug. Claire looks away uncomfortably. Summer apologizes and Kyle tells her, forget about it. He asks if they've called the police. Summer nods, but it's like she just disappeared. Kyle tells her there could be an innocent explanation. Summer supposes, but the longer Summer joins Claire and Kyle's table, but doesn't want to interrupt their date. Kyle says it's not a date. Summer appreciates him trying to cheer her up about her mom. She asks how dinner went. Kyle winces, about as expected. But they stood their ground. Victor knows he has no influence over their relationship. Summer warns he always gets what he wants. If he doesn't want them together, he'll find a way to end it. She thinks Claire must be feeling it sucks to have Victor Newman as a grandfather. Not that we ever had to deal with it, she says to Kyle. Am I remember that correctly? Kyle reminds her that Victor didn't have it out for him then, and he's protective of Claire. Summer's noticed. He's always known she can look out for herself. Claire can look out for herself too, and won't let anyone ruin this. She's happy. Kyle says, we're happy. Summer heads out, thanking Kyle again. At the door, she pauses and looks back at the couple. She's gone. It's just driving me a little crazy right now. At the ranch, Lily tells Victor she was just curious about Damian. Winters isn't planning to do business with him. Victor asks, it's personal? Lily laughs. She thanks him for the information. Victor's never known her to be this evasive. Lily says she learned it from him and Nikki. Victor warns he'll find out. Lily has nothing to hide. Damian joins Nate at the GCAC and tells him that he and Amy talked about some pretty heavy stuff, but he doesn't know if that will fix everything between them. Nate urges him to have another conversation with her. Damian admits they made progress, but he was wishing they never brought this into his life to begin with. Nate asks, do you think this was easy for me? Damian says it's not the same. Nate gets that, but he has no regrets. His mother is a good woman who loves him very much. that has to count for something. Damian concedes he'll learn things today he didn't know before. Nate urges him to take the next step then. It will cost him nothing and will mean the world to her. Lily arrives at the club and joins Nate and Damian. Nate learns that his brother introduced himself to her recently. Damian tells Nate that he hurt him, but he'll need a little more time. Nate says fine, but not too long, for obvious reasons. He stands to go check on Annie. The emotional conversation could have taken a toll physically. Damian asks him to let him know that she's okay, and they shake hands. Nate goes, and Damian tells Lily he met with his mom. She asks how it went. He tells her she'll have to agree to have dinner with him to find out. Lily agrees. Lily arrives at the club and joins Nate and Damian. Nate learns that his brother introduced himself to her recently. Damian tells Nate that he hurt him, but he'll need a little more time. Nate says fine, but not too long, for obvious reasons. He stands to go check on Amy. The emotional conversation could have taken a toll physically. Damian asks him to let him know that she's okay, and they shake hands. Nate goes, and Damian tells Lily he met with his mom. She asks how it went. He tells her she'll have to agree to have dinner with him to find out. Lily agrees. Nate arrives at home and asks Amy how she's feeling. She's not sure. He checks her pulse and says her heart is racing. She's just exhausted, mentally and physically. I think it's over. I don't think Damian is going to forgive me. She all but forced him to give her a hug when he left. Nate says Damian told her about their talk, and he didn't get the impression he wasn't coming back. He was concerned about her health. He doesn't think it's the end at all. He thinks it's the beginning of Damian letting go of all that anger. And he asks, really? Nate tells her they're close. Don't give up, she agrees.